My neighbor dumped 5 tons of manure on my driveway and said it wasn't his problem. So I solved it for him, for free. The smell hit me before the sound did. It was a thick, cloying stench of ammonia and wet earth that punched through the closed windows of my living room and settled into the back of my throat like a physical weight. I paused, my coffee mug halfway to my mouth, and looked out the front window just in time to see the bed of a massive, yellow dump truck rising into the air like the head of a mechanical hydra. I didn't have time to run. I didn't have time to shout. I just watched, paralyzed by the sheer audacity of the physics unfolding in front of me, as 5 tons of premium topsoil mixed with cow manure slid off the metal bed with a sound like a wet landslide. The truck jerked forward, shaking the last of the sticky brown mass loose, and then lowered the bed with a hydraulic hiss. The driver, a guy in a neon vest who looked like he wanted to be anywhere else on earth, didn't even look at the house. He checked his clipboard, spat out the window, and rumbled away down the street, leaving behind a steaming, 5-foot-high mountain of dirt directly in the center of my driveway. I stood there for a solid 10 seconds, my brain refusing to process the geometry of the situation. My car, my only means of getting to work, the grocery store, or the hospital, was parked in the garage. And between the garage door and the street lay a barrier of earth that would require a bulldozer to move. It was Wednesday, February 11th. The sky was a bruised shade of purple, heavy with clouds that promised a torrential downpour by nightfall. And I was trapped. I knew who did this. I didn't need a detective. I didn't need to check the delivery manifest. I just needed to look next door. Greg. Greg moved in 6 months ago. Greg is the kind of neighbor who mows his lawn at 6:30 a.m. on a Sunday because he likes the dew. Greg is the kind of guy who parks his oversized truck 2 inches from my bumper just to prove he can fit. Greg is cheap. He is notoriously, painfully cheap. He had been bragging for weeks about the massive landscaping project he was planning, and how he found a supplier who would deliver soil for half the price of the big companies because they did curbside drops only. Apparently, curbside meant my driveway. I felt the heat rising in my neck, a prickly, radioactive sensation that started at my collarbone and crawled up behind my ears. I slammed my coffee cup down on the counter, coffee splashing over the rim, and marched out the front door. The smell outside was worse. It was fresh fertilizer. It was the smell of a barnyard dropped into a suburb. I walked to the property line. Greg's house was dark. His truck was gone. Of course. He was at work. He had scheduled the delivery for when he wasn't home so he wouldn't have to deal with the logistics, assuming the driver would figure it out. The driver figured it out, all right. He saw a driveway, he saw a house number that was vaguely close to the one on his sheet. Greg is 404, I'm 402, and he pulled the lever. I pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking. I dialed Greg. He answered on the 3rd ring. Yellow. Greg, I said. My voice was low, vibrating with the effort to not scream. There is a mountain of poop in my driveway. What? Greg chuckled. It was a dismissive, airy sound. Oh, the dirt. Yeah, the guy called me. Said he dropped it. Did he get it close to the lawn? He didn't drop it on the lawn, Greg. He dropped it on my driveway. I am blocked in. My car is trapped. I can't leave my house. Oh, Greg paused. I could hear him chewing something on the other end. My bad. I told him to put it on the left side of the shared apron. He must have gotten confused. Listen, don't worry about it. I'll move it. You need to move it now, I said. I have to go to work in 2 hours. Now. Greg laughed again. Ethan, I'm at the office. I can't just leave. I'm in the middle of a quarterly review. I'll get to it this weekend. The weekend? I shouted, finally losing the battle with my temper. Greg, it's Wednesday. You expect me to be trapped in my house for 3 days because you were too cheap to pay for a spotter? Relax, buddy, he sighed, the tone of a parent talking to a tantrum-throwing toddler. It's just dirt. Walk to the street and call an Uber. I'll come over Saturday morning with my wheelbarrow and move it. It'll be fine. Just, park on the street until then. I can't park on the street because my car is in the garage. I yelled at the phone. Behind 5 tons of manure. Well, that's poor planning on your part, Greg snapped. Look, I gotta go. Don't touch it. That's premium topsoil. It cost me $800. I don't want you messing it up. Greg, listen to me, I said, staring at the dark clouds gathering overhead. It is going to rain tonight. Heavy rain. If that pile gets wet, it's going to turn into a mudslide. It's going to wash into my garage. It's going to stain my driveway. You need to hire a crew to come move it today. Not my problem, Greg said. It's on your land, sure, but it's my property. If you touch it, I'll sue you for damages. Wait until Saturday. Click. He hung up. I stood there in the cold wind, staring at the phone. Not my problem. I looked at the pile. It was massive. It was a monument to incompetence. And it was sitting squarely, undeniably, on my deeded property. I walked back inside. I sat at my kitchen table. I opened my laptop. I wasn't going to wait until Saturday. I wasn't going to let my garage flood with manure mud. I started researching. I looked up local ordinances. I looked up property law. City Code 402.1, illegal dumping. Civil Code Section 33, trespass to chattels. And then, I found it. The golden rule of accidental delivery and abandoned property. If an item is misdelivered to a private residence and constitutes a nuisance or hazard, and the owner refuses to retrieve it after reasonable notice, the property owner may dispose of the hazard to mitigate damages. Reasonable notice, I whispered. I texted Greg. Greg, this is your written notice. The dirt is blocking my egress and poses an environmental hazard with the incoming rain. You have 2 hours to remove it or schedule removal. If it is not gone by 12 p.m., I will consider it abandoned and dispose of it. I watched the 3 little dots appear. Greg, LOL. You touch my dirt, you pay for it. See you Saturday. Saturday, I said to the empty room. Right. I looked at the clock. It was 10 a.m. I had 2 hours. I waited. I paced. I drank more coffee. The sky grew darker. The wind picked up, swirling the dry dust from the top of the pile against my front door. 12 p.m. came. No Greg. No crew. No trucks. I walked out to the pile. I stuck a shovel into it. It was good dirt. Rich. Dark. Expensive. Abandoned, I said. I pulled out my phone. I opened Facebook Marketplace. I opened Craigslist. I opened the Nextdoor app. I created a listing. Title, Free Premium Topsoil and Manure Blend, 5 tons. Description, first come, first served. Bring your truck, bring your buckets, bring your trailer. High-quality garden soil delivered today. Must take immediately due to incoming rain. Easy driveway access. No holds. Load yourself. Address, 402, Oak Street. I hit post. Then I went to the garage and grabbed my own shovel. Not to move it for him, but to help the swarm that I knew was coming. The first truck arrived at 12:14 p.m. It was a rusted-out Ford F-150 with wood slat sides, driven by an old man in overalls who looked like he had been waiting his entire life for this moment. He pulled up to the curb, eyeing the pile like it was a mirage. "Is it real?" he shouted over the idling engine. The ad? Free dirt. Take it all, I waved him in. Fill her up. He didn't need to be told twice. He backed his truck right up to the base of the pile. He hopped out with a square-point shovel that looked sharp enough to cut diamonds. He started throwing dirt into the bed of his truck with a rhythmic, machine-like efficiency. Shick thump. Shick thump. 3 minutes later, a minivan pulled up. A woman in yoga pants jumped out. She lined the back of her van with a blue tarp. She had 5 Home Depot buckets. For my raised beds, she beamed, scooping handfuls of the dark soil. This stuff is amazing. Do you know what this costs at the nursery? I hear it's about $800 a load, I said, leaning against my porch railing, watching the work happen. You're a saint, she yelled. By 12:45 p.m., there was a line. I'm not exaggerating. There were 4 pickup trucks, 2 trailers, and a hatchback idling in the street, waiting for their turn at the mound. It was a frenzy. It was beautiful. A crew from a local community garden showed up with a flatbed trailer. They had 4 guys with wheelbarrows. They attacked the pile like a colony of ants on a dropped candy bar. We need this for the urban farm, one of the guys shouted, wiping sweat from his forehead. This is gonna feed the whole neighborhood come harvest time. Take it. I encouraged them. Don't leave a crumb. The pile was shrinking. Visibly shrinking. The peak of the mountain, which had been eye level with my garage door header, was now down to my waist. My phone buzzed. I ignored it. It buzzed again. And again. A call. Greg calling. I let it go to voicemail. Then a text. Greg, my Ring camera just went off. Why are there people in your driveway? I didn't answer. I took a picture of the community garden crew shoveling the last of the top half into their trailer. I sent it to him. Me, community service, Greg. Cleaning up the hazard. His response was immediate. It was in all caps. Greg, stop them. That is my dirt. I am calling the police. I laughed. Police? I muttered. Good luck explaining why you dumped a commercial load on a private driveway without a permit. I walked down the driveway to direct traffic. Okay, back it up. Watch the edges. Let's get this clear before the rain starts. The sky was almost black now. Thunder rumbled in the distance. The urgency spurred the scavengers on. They worked faster. At 1:30 p.m., Greg called again. I answered this time. I put it on speaker so I could keep shoveling the remnants into the last guy's trailer. Ethan. Greg screamed. He sounded like he was hyperventilating. Tell them to stop. I'm leaving work. I'm coming home. You should hurry, I said calmly. It's almost gone. You are stealing my property. I'm removing an obstruction, I corrected him. You abandoned it. You refused to move it. You told me it wasn't your problem. Well, now it's the community's solution. I paid for that. And you paid for curbside delivery to the wrong address, I said. Expensive mistake, Greg. Drive safe. I hung up. The last truck was a landscaping crew. They had a bobcat on a trailer, but they didn't even need to unload it. They just used shovels to scrape the asphalt clean. They took the dust. They took the residue. Want us to hose it down? The foreman asked, looking at the dark stain on my concrete. No, I said, looking at the first fat drops of rain hitting the pavement. Nature is about to handle that. They drove off at 2:15 p.m. My driveway was empty. Not a pebble remained. I walked into my garage. I got into my car. I backed out. I drove to the store to buy a bottle of wine. When I returned at 3 p.m., the rain was coming down in sheets. It was a deluge. Greg was standing in my driveway. He was soaked to the bone. His suit was ruined. He was staring at the wet, black asphalt where his mountain used to be. He looked like a man who had lost his religion. I pulled into the driveway, my headlights illuminating his misery. I rolled down the window. "Hey Greg," I said. "You're wet." He turned to me. His face was purple. Veins were bulging in his neck. "Where is it?" he hissed. "Gone," I said. "All over the city. Some of it is growing tomatoes in the community garden. Some of it is in a nice lady's flower bed. It's gone to a better place." "You owe me $800, he said, stepping toward my car. "You sold my dirt." "I didn't sell it," I smiled. "I gave it away. Zero profit. I just mitigated the damages. And honestly, you owe me a car wash. The dust is everywhere." "I'm suing you," he shrieked, kicking a puddle. "I'm taking you to small claims." "That was theft." "It was abatement of a nuisance," I countered. "Check the local ordinance. Section 402.1. Any material blocking a private right-of-way for more than 4 hours after notice may be removed at the owner's expense." "I saved you the removal fee, Greg. I did you a favor." "A favor?" He looked at his empty lawn, which was currently turning into a mud pit because he had removed the grass in preparation for the dirt that never came. "My yard is a hole. I have bare earth. The rain is washing it away." "Should have paid for the white glove delivery," I said. "They put it right in the backyard. Would have saved you a lot of trouble." He screamed. It wasn't a word. It was just a sound of frustration. He turned and stormed toward his house, slipping in the mud on his own lawn. I parked my car in the garage. I went inside. I poured a glass of wine and watched the rain wash my driveway clean. The next morning, the sun came out. I was drinking coffee on my porch when a truck pulled up. A different truck. A professional landscape supply truck with a crane arm. The driver got out. He walked up to Greg's door. Greg came out. He looked defeated. He handed the driver a credit card. "Backyard drop?" the driver asked. "Yes," Greg mumbled. "Backyard drop. That's an extra 200 fee," the driver noted. "Just do it," Greg snapped. I watched as the crane lifted a massive white bag of soil over the fence and deposited it gently onto Greg's mud pit. He had to buy the dirt twice. Once for the neighborhood, and once for himself. Plus the delivery fee. Plus the placement fee. He spent nearly $2,000 on a pile of dirt that should have cost him $8. He saw me watching. He glared. "Morning, Greg." I called out. "Nice dirt." He didn't wave back. Later that week, I got a basket of vegetables on my porch. There was a note attached. "To the guy with the free dirt, thanks for the soil. Our tomatoes are going to be amazing this year. The community garden." I took the basket inside. Greg put up a fence the next week. A high, privacy fence. He didn't want to see me. That's fine. I don't need to see him. I just need to see my clear, open driveway. Some people say I should have waited. They say I was too harsh. But when you block a man's path and tell him it's not your problem, you better be prepared for him to find a solution. And sometimes, the solution is a Facebook post and an army of strangers with shovels. So, tell me. Am I the monster for giving away my neighbor's property to save my driveway, or did he just learn that being cheap is the most expensive way to live?
If you have made it this far and want to see more videos like this, then kindly subscribe and turn on notifications so you may never miss another story like this.